Independiente de Avellaneda, one of the biggest clubs in Latin America, if not the biggest one, since they are the ones that got the most Copa Libertadores in history, are now struggling economically, and the chances of them paying the debts they owe are extremely low. They have no football quality, their economy is just destroyed. One would think this is an anomaly, but in the situation they are, not really. I mean, the entire Argentina applies to this case. A country that in the 1800s were the second biggest world power in the world and now are an extremely poor country. Same applies to the football in Argentina, where back in the 60s and in the 70s and even in the 2000s, there were just some of the best and the greatest teams in the world, and now they cannot just win a single Copa Libertadores. It's 2014 and Argentina lost the World Cup final against Germany in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Julio Grondona, the Argentinian FA president since 1979, dies, and Racing Club de Avellaneda wins the first league with a 35-year-old Diego Milito, who was 2 years away from retirement. This is when things went crazy. The AFA decided to cancel any kind of relegation and brought to the first division a total of 10 new teams. The question is simple: why? Spoiler alert, it's politics. In 2009, the Argentinians thought it was a good idea that government financed football with state funds, giving birth to Fútbol para Todos, football for all. League games were completely free to watch, and there was no much negotiation needed between AFA and the government since there was ideological affinity between both parts. The program was then cancelled in 2017 during Mauricio Macri's administration. The problem began when, in an attempt to save the smaller clubs' economies, they thought it could be a good idea to give them part of the revenue paid by the government, making them join the first division. No one had a problem with this because, as you can imagine, the decision of subsidizing sport wasn't because politicians were expecting an economic return, but to gain more votes. The result was unsurprising, to say the least. A league with 30 games from which the last 10 of them were struggling economically couldn't be anything but a disaster, ending with a league full of bad, unwatchable games and complicating the international competitions because of the new games that had to be played. It wasn't competitive at all, but it was tough because it required a lot of games to be played, but they did not earn money out of it, and it was just a huge wake that no one really wanted to win. The economical situation of the entire country worsened over the years, with high inflation and fiscal deficit. The new AFA president, Chiquitapia, kept changing the system in every level of Argentinian football. Clubs were also very corrupted, having many characters using them to start a political career, doing crazy promises that might guarantee short-term success, but complicating the financial situation of the club. In the past, teams had the resources to bring back club legends at ages in which they can still help the team with a respectable fitness level. Juan Román Riquelme came back to Boca at 28 years old and won a Copa Libertadores. Verón was back at Estudiantes with 31 years old, and a few years later won a Libertadores and almost beat Pep's Barcelona. This is now impossible to see both in the economic and the sports aspect. All these events drove us to where we are today. A league in which basically most of the games are useless and only Boca and River are the only teams that are decently stable. The players leave at a very young age because there's no money and there's no reason why to play in Argentina since the level is really low, so they cannot develop themselves to become greater. Other factors that discourage players to come to the Argentinian league are the big tax, the huge insecurity that's in the country, and the general violence that one can experience walking around the streets of Buenos Aires. Javier Milei, the Argentinian new president, a libertarian, self-proclaimed anarcho-capitalist, got into office and in a matter of days presented a decree that aims to deregulate the economy, and in a particular point, he proposes football clubs to have the chance of becoming private enterprises, like Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain. This means that teams like Independiente or San Lorenzo, that are currently in serious trouble, could find an, for example, Arab sheikh willing to pay for the club's debt and manage it by himself, something similar to the English format. Truth is that this wasn't well received by AFA, because it would end with the corruption as we currently know it, and the populistic proposals that help malicious politicians to get to power. In parallel, debate was also ignited in the Argentine society between the people that defended the current system, clubs with presidents elected by the fans, and the impossibility of these clubs to become enterprises. And on the other hand, we had the people that wanted this liberal approach in which teams could freely decide if they wanted to become an enterprise or if they wanted to become or still be social clubs. The main point expressed by the people that defend the current system is the fact that clubs are basically social phenomenons. They are really old organization that it is what it is basically because it has a lot of years and a lot of glory. If there's no people, there's no football club. Consequently, if a club becomes private, there will be a huge loss in identity, which basically destroys the entire essence of the sport. This sounds irrelevant to some extent until you understand that some people, especially in Argentina and in the smaller clubs, live out of clubs. Their entire social life is based on a football club, on a football organization.
Even though this is valid, the defenders of the English system suggest that going private, there will be no more corruption, and it would be harder for corrupt leaders to steal, since the main goal of the organization would be only to profit. Perhaps it's not that much a thing of the people anymore, but at least the badge is respected by everybody. Apart from that, it is also a possibility that some club owners decide to change everything about the club, like RB Leipzig, destroying years of history and tradition.
However, this is generally planned, and technically the majority of the fans should be in favor of the change, which would already be known. Still, a 51% counts as a majority, so there will be another 49% that just would stop being a fan of the club.
In the social aspect, clubs in Argentina have an important role on keeping kids and teens outside of the streets, playing football instead, since social clubs are forced to reinvest all the money they make. There are school and training camps in the north of the country, where the economy is the worst. Owners would close those places because it is an investment that does not have any kind of return.
The ones who want change could argue that football clubs aren't the ones responsible for the creation of schools, training grounds, or places to avoid kids to become gangsters. But in reality, the ones responsible for this are governments that are supposed to help people to improve their financial situation, right? Still, in my opinion, I believe that social clubs or private entities will always have a reason to dynamize or to help to dynamize social mobility, as clubs will always be in need of young talent that is also capable of reading and speaking properly.
A great idea to find players could be opening schools around the country and keeping an eye in the kids that find an interest in football, whether it is playing it or other roles the industry needs. Most say that this can still go wrong, and the club does not necessarily have to become Manchester City or Paris Saint-Germain. You might end up like Granada CF, which is a club owned by some Chinese nobody really knows about, and it's probably a way to do money laundering. But to be fair, the exact same thing happens with social clubs, only that the fans can change a person if they are really doing bad. But there's no long-term proposal, because that's democracy's biggest flaw.
To wrap up, there's no magic formula, sadly. Sometimes you're successful and things go well, and sometimes you're not successful and things do not go as well as you wanted to. But still, you might disappear, but something else might come up out of it. The current system in Argentina is completely destroyed, and there must be some sort of change.
Hopefully, only the best happens to Argentinian football. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it with your friends.